Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to today's PLMA Load Management Dialogue. Here, you'll discover practitioner perspectives on flexible energy load management, demand response, distributed energy resources, and managed charging. Today's webinar, we're in for a special treat. PLMA's awards co-chair, Kevin Knight of Baltimore Gas and Electric, will be speaking with Andrew Barrington of Avista Utilities, which is located in Spokane, Washington, and also with Bidgely about their UtilityAI platform and how it has worked for Avista. So we have Andrew Barrington from Avista joining us, as well as Mary Mantese, who is joining us from Bidgely, and they'll be talking with Kevin about this whole process and what they've learned and what they've achieved, and we're looking forward to hearing all about it. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Kevin Knight to get the conversation going. Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Judy, and thank you guys for joining us today for today's Peak Load Management Alliance Load Management Dialogue. So again, I'm Kevin Knight. I'm with Baltimore Gas and Electric, and I'm excited to introduce some recent Tech Pioneer Award winners to tell us a little bit about their award-winning efforts. So with me today, as mentioned, I have Andrew Barrington from Avista Utilities and Mary Mantese from Bidgely. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we have two utilities that were scored as award winners by a committee of PLMA members. As a full transparency and a pitch here, if you are interested in scoring future award winners, please do reach out to myself or PLMA staff. We are happy to have more people on the board to score these submissions. I view it as an amazing way to see what other people are doing around the industry that are deemed to be award worthy. So definitely a good opportunity if you're interested. We will be putting more information out there when we are about to score the next round of submissions. So be on the lookout or reach out to PLMA staff or myself, and we are happy to include you if you're interested. So a little bit about the Tech Pioneer Award winners. This award is given to the tech pioneer that is an entity who achieves potential for peak load management through innovative applications of technology with a demonstrated potential to scale that technology. So the potential recipients, they can be the consumer, they can be a solutions provider, they can be a manufacturer. There aren't very many limitations on this, but it is someone that is identified as having innovative applications of technologies with a potential to scale those technologies. So with that, next slide, I want to introduce our award winners and let them tell you all about their award-winning effort. So Andrew, Mary, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Kevin. And yeah, thanks for having us. Just a quick background for myself. So I am new to Avista. I've been here for a couple of years. I started in May of 2022 as a products and services manager with direct oversight with our energy management tools, our billing and payment customer journey, as well as our unplanned outage journey. And then Mary, if you want to do a quick introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Mary Montese. I'm the Senior Innovation Manager for Bidgely. I essentially lead all products that have to do with analytics, as well as electric vehicles, managed charging. And I have the pleasure of working with Andrew on almost a weekly or more frequently than a weekly basis.
And while we have a quick break, sorry to cut you off, I did want to emphasize that if there are questions, we do have everybody on mute today. Just type those questions in the chat box and I'll be compiling them for the question and answer session at the end. So again, any questions that come up, please do put them in the chat and I'll be collecting them and I'll moderate them at the end. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So we wanted to kind of start out and outline what the Avista and Bidgely journey was when we started. So we rolled out our solution in 2020. And we really started with an inside-out approach. So we first rolled out our high bill analyzer, which is also known as the Care Portal. And it was specifically designed to help our CSRs. We wanted to, AMI was new, disaggregation was new. So, bringing this type of technology to our customers, we knew we didn't want to just roll it out. So we started internally. And we got some really great feedback from our CSRs, right? This tool was working when they were on calls with customers to mitigate those high bill calls. Customers were asking, well, how do you know how much cooling I was using, how much heating I was using? That was really driving the desire for us to then move into the next step. But within that, we saw a reduction in high bill calls. We saw a reduction in truck rolls. We saw a 27% reduction in truck rolls the year following that we implemented our internal high bill analyzer. So again, we empowered our CSRs to have these great tools, which then empowered our customers to learn what their usage was, and they can make meaningful changes. So following the CSR implementation, we moved towards the Bidgely Analytics Workbench tool, which is really a real-time database of all of our AMI data and disaggregation all into an amazing user-friendly platform, able to look at zip codes, or if we wanted to look at certain houses that had high heating loads or inefficient heating loads. If we wanted to look at peak demand, we can start forecasting EV, which we'll talk about here a little bit later today. And this was really just an internal tool to allow the Avista personnel to really dig into energy efficiency programs, perhaps system planning, system engineering, look at that trend and the growth. What parts of our service territory were growing at a faster rate with energy usage? So that's been a really great tool. We continue to use that frequently today. And then following that in 2022, we rolled out our customer-facing Bidgely widgets. So we had great success with our CSRs in 2020, 2021. In 2021, we did our analytics workbench, again, building the team up internally. And then in 2022, we launched it to our Washington state residents with AMI meters, which is close to 280,000 customers. They now got those personalized energy insights, able to see their 5-minute interval data in a graph form, all the way up to 60-minute interval data on a graph form, and then was able to provide them disaggregation. So customers today can see where their energy dollars are going, which has been really impactful. And you know, when you bring all that together, we bring the CSRs, our customers together, our system planning, our energy efficiency team, it's really changed the way that we provide a service to our customers. I want to pause there, and Mary, if there's anything you want to touch on that I may have overlooked.
The only thing I would add is I work with a lot of different utilities, and the thing that I think makes this relationship with Avista so special is I work with the analytics, and frequently the analytics are used for these operational efficiency goals and for your programs and for grid reliability and stability, et cetera. But what Avista always does, and specifically I'll call out Andrew here, is it always gets tied to the customer. And so there's always this very personal story at the end of these analytics, which I think is just quite special, that you can get all the way back to what did this mean to this customer and tell their story. So just honestly a pleasure to be working with Avista and your approach towards analytics. And I think we can move to the next slide. Yeah. So in the next couple slides, Andrew is going to share some truly wonderful stories about how they used these analytics. And I think it's really important to talk about specifically what those are, to make this concrete. Analytics, data, all of the AI, it's kind of a lot of buzzwords, and it can be very confusing and ambiguous what we're actually referencing sometimes. So I'm going to take just a couple minutes and make this very real about the journey that Avista has been on over the last couple of years. So on the left-hand side, we have usage plotted for, you can think of it either as a singular customer or maybe even usage for your entire grid. And this is very standard information that a utility would have, is to understand what is the customer's usage by month. Are they high usage, low usage? Maybe even have some insights about what kind of appliances they might have given the trends in their usage. But what Avista's done over the last couple of years is shift to this view on the right-hand side. And this is what the image becomes with true disaggregation. And I'm going to take a minute to talk about what disaggregation truly means. True disaggregation is when we get to the appliance level usage. So we know not only what appliances are at a premise, but how they're being used. Do they have an electric vehicle? What is the amplitude of that electric vehicle? When are they charging? How frequently are they charging? Is there an HVAC system? Are there heat pumps? What is the behavior? And that is what you get in this right-hand image, which is an 8760, which means 365 days in a year times 24 hours. So it's every single hour of demand plotted across an entire year. And then all of those different colors represent the appliance level usage. And again, you can think about this at either the customer level, what is that hourly level appliance usage at the customer level, but then at the grid. And I think it's very simple or easy to say, okay, I see that image. That looks awesome. I want that level of granularity. But what is so key is translating all of that information into real actionable insights. So, and that's what Andrew will actually share with you is, okay, now that you have all this information, what did you do with it, and how did it drive operational efficiency, grid stability, trend analysis, etc. And we can move to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and quickly share my screen. And I'm going to move directly into the analytics platform that Andrew and Avista users are actually using, so that you can follow along with kind of that journey that Andrew and his coworkers took as they started to drive next level value into their use cases. I want to confirm, Andrew, my screen share is visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, excellent. All right, so this is Analytics Workbench. Something that maybe a typical use case is, let's say, understanding inefficient cooling appliances over the summer. We're just getting out of the summer, but I know those heat spikes were kind of at the top of everyone's mind. So right here, when we talk about appliance level consumption, this is maybe what we would kind of the journey would look like. We would go ahead and select cooling. So now we are selecting all of those customers with a cooling device, an AC, and all of their usage over maybe the last year's worth of data. And right now we're looking at, 2023 data. Then maybe I would want to go see, all right, so this is what this is what cooling consumption looked like. Well, I want to go ahead and see, well, what did my devices look like that were inefficient? So there's multiple levels to this data, and not only are you able to tell who has a cooling device or their AC, but what is actually the health of that equipment. And that health of the equipment is defined by a lot of different metrics, but you can think about it as the health of the cycling or the compressor. So I'll just go, okay, let me see everyone who's a very efficient device, a cooling device, and I want to see what their average consumption was. And for these customers, their average consumption, so one customer with a efficient cooling device in this territory or this region that I'm looking at, they use roughly half a megawatt of megawatt hour of energy on just cooling. But more importantly, I want to look at my customers and see who has a very inefficient device. And then from there, I want to see how can I serve these customers and help reduce their bill. So these customers with a very inefficient device, on average, they are using 1.5 megawatt hours in a singular month, which was 3 times the amount of some of these other customers. And then on, this kind of journey, you go ahead and say, all right, I see that I have 1,000 customers that are inefficient and spending this much on cooling. Let me download that list of customers and let's talk to them. Let's get in these homes. Let's offer them an energy or an audit, etc. But let's make sure that we're doing the most we can to serve this customer base and reduce their load, as well as reduce that peak demand that's occurring at the hottest, worst times on your grid. So I will stop there. And if we go back to the slides, I will hand it back to you, Andrew.
Great, thanks, Mary.
And I think we can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
And skip this one too.
Perfect. Well, I think that's a great segue. We're going to talk about a handful of use cases here where we were able to leverage all of our Bidgely tools and again, focus on those customer interactions and the benefits for our customers. So this was a case study that we did earlier this year. Actually, we had a customer north of Spokane, Washington, in our service territory, who had a continuously high bill. And this is very challenging for customers. This happens everywhere. It's not just an Avista issue. This is a global utility issue. And when we look at these homes, this customer's bill, as you can see, we've outlined up here, they were using on average during the winter months anywhere between 4,000 and 5,000 kWh per month. And of that, we were looking at their heating load, and of their total charges of roughly 400 to 500, upwards of $600, $300 to $500 of that was going to heating. So almost 80% of their bill was going to heat their home. So this customer had reached out, and we just wanted to dig into it a little bit more. So we were able to run some algorithms within our analytics workbench, and we were able to identify that, yes, this home had a very poor heating efficiency or very low heating efficiency. And then we were able to actually go a step further and to determine whether it was a saturation or degradation, right? Was it equipment failure? Was it that the system was just running poorly? Maybe it hadn't been serviced. Maybe the air filter, right, was clogged. All of those things we were able to kind of identify, but we weren't really seeing so much of a degradation. So this has been a continual issue for years, and it's been the same. So then what we looked at was the envelope of the home, and we found that it was a saturation issue. So think of windows, doors, insulation, where heat's escaping the home, and it was showing a very high saturation. And this was a newer home. The home was built in around 2017. So it's a modest size home, 1,700 square feet, and it should not be having this type of an issue. So we ended up partnering with our local energy advisor here in Eastern Washington, which is called SNAP. And SNAP was able to go into the home and actually do an inspection based on this information. And we supplied this information to our partners and said, hey, we think it's an envelope issue of the home. Let's do a thorough investigation. And what they found was this home actually had the incorrect insulation. It had an R15 insulation, which is not should not be considered in our region. It needed an R60 or higher equivalent in order to meet these cooling and heating demands we have in our region. So as you can see, we dotted the orange line here of the home energy audit. When that took place, and this customer's bill nearly got slashed in half. Their heating bill went from on average $400 a month to the high hundreds or even low 200s. Which is remarkable when you look at this. So this is the type of information that we're trying to leverage from our analytics workbench and our Bidgely tools to empower those customers, to let them know, and go proactively enhance their quality of life within their home. Go to the next slide. So Mary kind of briefly outlined this, the functionalities within our analytics workbench platform. And this is really unique. When we look at this was just an area in Spokane County that we were evaluating, right? We all have these energy efficiency plans and goals and programs that we want to run. But it's what's the best program? What's the best bang for the buck for the utility? What's the best bang for the buck for the customer? How do you evaluate that instead of doing the broadcast email to all of your customers? So here we were able to filter out, we wanted very low efficiency. So again, poor efficiency on their heating systems. And what we found was customers who had poor efficiency, on average, were spending 50% of their bill, their utility bill, was going to heat their home. Whereas a customer with a high efficiency, so a great efficiency on their HVAC system, they were only seeing around 27% of their total bill was going to heating. That's remarkable. That's a huge difference. So what we're able to do then is you look at those homes who have very low efficiency, that's 26,000 accounts that we can go in, and maybe it's just as simple as getting them on an air filter program to replace those air filters. When was the last time they had their air filter, their HVAC system serviced or maintained. And then just doing those inspections about installation in the home, awareness, right? Windows, doors, attic, all of those that our energy efficiency team can then start developing programs for. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, this was just recent. We thought it was a really fun use case to share. So last week I received the email over here to the left that said, hey, we need a list of all residents in Spokane County who have higher than normal usage with the age of their home within a named community. And I'll talk about named community here shortly, and then their square footage of their home. So, right, that might be daunting. Before Bidgely, we would not have been able to achieve this level of information for our Corp Comms team and our energy efficiency team. But within 2 hours, we were able to provide a list of both our electric usage and natural gas usage. So then we had a recruitment list now of who we could go through and do a home energy audit for. We found an eligible of 210,000 Spokane County eligible homes, but their average usage was around 11,500 kWh. And then we found homes who were using more than that, right? So then we found an additional 75,000 homes who would be maybe tier one. Maybe that's the first group we should go look at. And we broke out homes that were built before 1950, maybe 1950 to 1980, 1980 to right before 2000, and then any homes built after 2000. And then we wanted to go a little bit further. So our named communities, these are communities that are considered low income, vulnerable customers, medical dependent customers. And what we do for them is we want to look at those. Historically, those customers are the ones who have high bills, right? Are having challenges with their utility bills and usage, not understanding. And when you look at the difference, the homes in the named community, on average, were using 15,000 kWh per year instead of the homes outside of those, which were using 11,500. So it's pretty remarkable just on those homes. And now we can go and prioritize those 75,000 within that named community, and then prioritize who's the highest usage, who has the highest heating load, or maybe someone has the highest cooling load in the summer and they need some help with, and they just don't know their home. So now our team is kind of hitting the ground running to take this list of recruitment to start getting those customers engaged in a home energy audit at no cost, which is a really cool program to be running, because historically we would have had to send out a blanket communication to all of our customers to ask them if they'd be interested in a home energy audit. But now, right, if I have a new home, a 2023 home that's brand new, I don't need a home energy audit. I'd hope not. So now we're able to actually go to the customer that's going to have the most impact. Go to the next slide. Great. Earlier we mentioned about electric vehicles and what that adoption looks like, and this was a fun use case we did. So we at Avista had an EV program, like many of our peer utilities do, to try to just understand EV behavior, understand EV growth. And what we found is that our customers were not telling us that they went out and bought an EV. And it took us a little bit to swallow that pride, because we thought as soon as a customer buys their EV, their Tesla or any other electric vehicle, that they would call their utility and celebrate, but that just didn't happen. So what we were able to do is start looking through Analytics Workbench, and this was just a specific feeder, right? We wanted to look at feeders, maybe we wanted to look at substations to see what does the EV disaggregation look like. And what we were able to see, the bars on the right here, these are year over year gross on a certain feeder. So, right, we only knew of a certain amount of customers who had EV, but the data was telling us that we had much more growth in that area of electric vehicle adoption. So you can see in year one, we went from 618 to the next year was almost 1,400 to then almost 2,300. But our number of EV participants within our program was not growing at that rate. We had approximately 800 known participants within our program. And this was just one feeder. So we knew we had well more over that 800 of electric vehicles, but they just weren't within the program. So what we were able to do is almost back engineer the Analytics Workbench with Bidgely's help. So we had this list of customers, the 800, who we had account numbers, location, uses, etc. We were able to upload that list in a simple upload feature within Analytics Workbench to say, now you have this information. We want you to remove the known EV customers. And then what we were left with was almost 1,500 to 2,000 new account numbers where Bidgely was detecting EV where we did not know about. So Bidgely is detecting EV, we were unaware. So now I have this list of 1,500 to 2,000. I'm now able to go communicate to those customers, let them know that we have an EV program that could potentially save them money, right? Teaching them about the best times to charge for the network and for the cost of those customers, understanding their usage and giving and answer any questions. So this was a really cool use case because at Avista, we're trying to really become this utility energy partner, right? We don't want to be called the utility of the region. We want it to be this partnership where we're able to educate our customers. They're able to lean on us for support. We're able to lean on them for support. And then together, it's just mutually beneficial. And I think we're achieving that by these really, really cool tools. So of those 1,500 customers, 2,000 customers we were able to find, our EV team, as our electric vehicle team, is now focusing on engaging those customers to get them enrolled in our EV pilot program or programs in the future. Great. And this is we talked about the named communities, which is that kind of low income, vulnerable, medical dependent customers. And this is this was really a unique opportunity. And unfortunately, at Avista, we didn't have the resources. We found out kind of late about this grant opportunity, and we didn't have the resources to get this grant done. But what was so unique about this is we received this, we got wind of this a grant that's available for anyone who was above 275% above the national average on their utility, on how much they were spending per their utility. So this was unique because we initially got the email and we just said, yeah, no, in our region we don't have customers who are exceeding 275% of the national average on their energy costs. And then, I saw that email come through and I was like, I really want to look at that because I want to say we do. And when I say we didn't have enough time, I think we had 2 weeks before it was due when we actually saw this, and just with resources, we weren't able to execute it. But within about an hour, we were able to establish a list within our Analytics Workbench tool to identify customers who would have been eligible or communities that would have been eligible to get this. So this really allowed us to think differently now when these grants come in to where we can take advantage of it. And we have all this data at our fingertips, and being able to execute on it is going to be remarkable in the future. So we're excited to have this opportunity, and the fact that we were able to prove it out and we identified we had over, I want to say over 20,000 customers within a community that would have been eligible for this has really got us excited about future grants and future opportunities and leveraging Analytics Workbench. We can go to the next slide.
All right, this is my cue to start my favorite session or part of the session, which is the Q&A. So we have a few questions coming in. If anyone on the call does have additional questions, please do keep sending them in. I will give you a thumbs up as soon as I see them and put them on the docket. If for some reason we don't get through all the questions, we'll make sure that we get answers out to everyone after the fact. So I will start off with the first question that came in that regards or is regarding to the AMI metering that may or may not be needed for the UtilityAI platform. So Mary, this is a good question for you. Do you require AMI metering, or can this be achieved with AMR data as well?
Yeah, so for true disaggregation, it can be done with AMI data of any granularity, so 5, 15, 30 an hour, et cetera, as well as AMR. And it can also be done on the electric side as well as the gas side. Of course, the thing that I think everyone here would recognize is with lower or with higher granularity of that data, so with fewer reads, sometimes that there is a difference in the number or the types of appliances that you can detect, but no true disaggregation can occur with both AMI as well as AMR.
And I think you mentioned it, but the I guess sub question of that is, what is the minimum disaggregation you would need? 15-minute, 1 hour, or I guess what do you feel like you need to get accurate trends from the customer's data?
Yeah, and I would say a lot of this also has to do with the type of usage for this data, as well as like the level of accuracy that you need. So in short, on the AMI side, anything that's an hour or less, you can get up to 12 different appliances, the time of use of when those appliances are being used at the hourly level, et cetera. You'll have all sorts of sub insights that I've kind of talked about, which was like, not only can you detect heating and cooling, but you can detect actually the health of the equipment. You can detect the amplitude or the size of an electric vehicle charging. If we're talking about daily reads or monthly reads, then we're talking less about the ability to detect it, in an hourly fashion, but we're saying like we could still find the appliance. Yeah, so a lot of it will also depend upon the actual user's needs and how they intend to use the data.
Yeah, and I guess you keep touching on the next question that's coming. So this is a good train of thought here. I guess the question came in: how do you determine if a device is inefficient, or if there's a health issue for that device? And I guess to layer onto that, is there challenges or anything you can share regarding having multiple devices operating at the same time, like multiple HVAC? Is there a way to tease that out, or does it mask itself? Anything you can share on how you guys are determining the health or inefficiencies?
Absolutely. And you know what? I have a slide and I think I accidentally deleted it when I put my other ones in. So my apologies. The explanation was a little bit light here on how this actually occurs. But in short, so the process in a very simple way is Avista sends us their AMI data, and then there's a couple other data sources that are layered in. But truly, it comes down to that AMI data. There's no other hardware that's required. When we look at that AMI data, there are unique appliance signatures in that data. And I think it can get very confusing when you don't live in this world, because you say, okay, an HVAC system can look very similar to kind of like a level 1 or a low amplitude EV charger, and a laundry. A lot of these appliances look very similar. Um, and the reality is they don't. Um, and the only way to tease out those very specific differences is with millions and billions of pieces of data and training. And that's what Bidgely's been doing over the last decade, is finding those very specific attributes that are unique to a specific appliance. So for HVAC systems, we're actually detecting the cycling of that appliance. So we're looking at that compressor and we're seeing it turning on and we're seeing it turning off. And we're measuring what is the distance between when that compressor turns on and when is it turn off, and how long does that compressor run. And that's how you're kind of able to pull out all of these different faults in the appliance.
So Andrew, don't get. Oh, go ahead,
I
Andrew.
will add, because there's a really cool, you talked about how do you find that faulty appliance or what's wrong. And we had a really cool use case within 30 days of when I started at Avista. So I was still wet behind the ears and super excited about this opportunity. And we had a customer whose detection was showing that they had a heating load and a cooling load in July in Spokane, which is really unusual, right? That shouldn't happen. So the customer reached out because they had a really high bill. Our CSRs were like, well, we're showing detection, right? We know we can detect it. So we're showing that there's something wrong with your HVAC system. And it was a renter, which adds some complexity. So the renter got the landlord involved, and landlord came back with, nope, there's no issue here. And then the next month it just continued. So we ultimately all came together, and they finally brought an electrician out. And what they had found is the relay had fused together, causing the heat to come on at the same time the cooling system was trying to come on, and they were blowing a balmy 87 degrees out of their vents in their home for months. But what's amazing is we were able to show something's wrong because we're showing heating and cooling at the same time, which was just amazing, to be able to find those complexities. And that's what these tools are giving our customers to do now that they can self-serve, right? So that customer, we went so far with that customer. We have a customer for life there, right? They are so fortunate that they have this information and that their partner is assisting them in that.
Yeah, it's a really good proof of what you guys are doing, and I think that happens more often than we think when
Yes.
people's systems are not necessarily working as designed.
Yeah.
To kind of transition on that question, I know there's a lot of electrification going on. There's a lot of people that are adding EVs. Is the Bidgely utility AI product able to detect when customers are adding additional EVs or they're electrifying their system? And how does that come through as a update to the customer as opposed to a potential problem that maybe their systems aren't working? How do you guys differentiate that?
Andrew, I'll let you go first if you want, and then chime in after.
Yeah, so for multiple EVs, when customers see the disaggregation, it just shows it as EV. It's not going to show how many EVs. However, we do have a home profile survey where we can ask customers information about their EVs. They can let us know. That survey helps us with the disaggregation and also provides us really valuable data for us to have for future programs. But we start learning the number of EVs, the type of EV they have, their charging schedules, and how many miles they may drive. So we get all of that through this home profile survey. But yeah, Mary, have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I get this question quite frequently around multiple electric vehicles. And it's difficult because if you think about it, it's easy to see, or we can easily tell whether there's an electric vehicle there, but whether there's multiple, it can get very confusing. Now, what I've done with several utilities is where we see large amounts of EV charging, just extreme amounts. This is when we start kind of segmenting that group of customers and going, okay, we're seeing about double what the average electric vehicle would be charging. And then you can actually in a heat map kind of style, you can start looking at, like, do we see two different kind of charging behaviors? And if there are, this is a very strong indicator that there are two electric vehicles at a single premise.
Great. And I guess there is a question that came through, and Andrew, it was directed towards you, but are you working with your operations teams to determine where you guys are seeing these EVs coming on, or maybe even electrification coming on, and able to identify potential grid constraints and get ahead of that? Has any, I guess, futuristic planning been going on your end?
Yeah, that's what's so great about the Analytics Workbench tool is the future forecasting, and I'll say scenario planning that you can have within the tool. So for us, we have this group of our cross-functional team of folks, from system planning to customer experience to energy efficiency to myself, that meet with Mary frequently to come up with different use cases. But we work with Bidgely to, what does that look like on system planning? What does that look like when we forecast? And when, we have the ability to where we can start scenario planning. Like, what does it look like with a 3% adoption of solar and a 10% adoption of EV? And then what does it look like on certain feeders or substations where we potentially could start looking at, well, we have a constraint here, but is there a constraint that's going to be mitigated if we can do some energy efficiency campaigns to reduce the cooling load in the summer for these customers? Or perhaps the transition of heat pumps, right? Customers are moving to heat pumps. What are going to be good homes that would benefit from a heat pump versus homes that may not benefit from a heat pump? But all of that is achievable within the Analytics Workbench that our team consistently kind of just consumes and is thinking about. So yeah, the functionality is there. And I think if I can get everyone to just chew on the Bidgely tool, that's fantastic. But as everyone knows, we have 100 different tools and different pieces that we all use. But yeah, there is lots of value when you can start scenario planning for that. And Mary, I don't know if you wanted to chat a little bit more about that functionality that's available.
The only thing I'll say is just from an industry perspective, flexible demand management strategies I see only growing as more and more critical. And it is just essential at this point to demand is not static. It is movable, it is producible, it is shiftable, it is very dynamic. And I think we're entering into a point where you have to know the nuances of that demand unless you plan on doing capital investments, upgrades everywhere. And I just don't think feasibly that, the industry can't head in that direction. So it is just such a important area that I can't help emphasize it. Just even as a customer, that like these flexible demand strategies must be advanced and keep up with how the grid is growing.
So I'm going to switch topics a little bit. You guys started out the presentation focused on customers and how you're empowering CSRs, the customer service representatives. Was there IT integrations required, or how did you guys overcome that potential barrier of getting the CSRs the appropriate information they needed?
Yeah, great question. And that was a key point for us. We're an Oracle, Oracle CCB, and we knew that we had to have something, right? We had to have it really a one-click functionality for our CSRs. When Andrew, the customer, calls in, they can look up my account. They need to be able to look at that high bill analyzer within one click. And we were able to achieve that with SSO with Bidgely, right from that customer account within Oracle, to where it just populates onto a new page for our CSRs. So within one click, within a matter of seconds, the page opens up where the CSR can see the 12, 18, 24 months, however much data, AMI data we have. They're able to see all of that information. And what's really cool about that too is Bidgely helped us achieve, give us those top tips, right? When they're disaggregating this information, give us 1 to 2 sentences of what we can tell customers to help them reduce their bill, right? So if Bidgely is detecting a high cooling load or a high heating load or an inefficiency on another application or appliance, to give us tips that we can share with our customers. And one thing that I failed to mention earlier, which I think is really important, is that tool we're going on 4 or 5 years now, and we monitor it regularly. And our CSRs, we've asked our CSRs when they get in there to really make sure, give us the good, the bad, the ugly. We want to know if it's not working for you. But we've maintained a 4.3 to 4.7 CSAT with our CSRs. So we're surveying those CSRs, not necessarily the customer, but the CSR who is the customer in this situation.
Great. I guess sticking with the customer, I know some customers they expect the utility to know everything about them because we have their energy use. And then the other hand, customers are saying, why are you looking at all my data? You're being creepy. Have you received any customer concerns or stakeholder concerns about the data security or the visibility or transparency that you currently have into what the customer is doing? Is there anything you're able to share about that?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and it does come up quite a bit. And we do have customers who are, it's you don't need to know how much cooling I'm using or how much heating I'm using. I just pay my bill and that's it, and that's fine. In Washington State, we have an opt-out. We allow customers to opt out of AMI if they would like to. Overall, we have very low opt-out. It's less than 0.5% who have opted out of this information. But when those questions do come up, we're very good on presenting the information with disclaimers, right? We know it's estimates on usage for AMI. It's only as good as what the data we can get back from our tech, that we can get over to Bidgely. But I think at first when we rolled it out, there was a lot more vocal around this idea, but really we've just come accustomed to it, right? As I think we're shifting as a culture where we're okay, right? We're okay for Netflix to tell me what show I should watch after I watch the movie. So I think it's very similar on the type of behavior that we're doing. But what's also really cool is the awareness that Avista is doing with our customers, sharing that these tools are available and here's why, for you to understand instead of getting a bill that says, oh, you owe $150 this month, here's a bill of $150, but you can understand what you're paying for. It's just like when you go to the grocery store, it's this itemized receipt. And we did a energy assistance fair, and we were actually walking customers through these tools, and we actually had a handful of customers who had opted out, voluntarily opt back in for an AMI after they saw the level of information we were able to provide them, which is really cool, right? I think at first it's a little scary. Technology's new, and people may not want that. But once you can share this awareness, it's been really encouraging.
Great. So a question just came in, and I always love these questions. A lot of these, we always talk about what went well and what's great, and this is award-winning. But are you willing to share anything that you're having trouble with, or anything the software couldn't detect that you would like to try to figure out in the future? Any lessons learned, I guess?
Yeah, this happens. I'll let Mary jump in here because there's probably more of a technical response. But this type of stuff happens, and a lot of it we hear is bill cycles are all different for customers, and maybe I turned my thermostat right. Almost majority of our customers have smart thermostats within their home, so they're able to get these updates that say, oh, you use 5 hours of cooling this month, and if I use 5 hours of cooling in a bill cycle, Bidgely may not detect that because that's so low, and so when a customer sees that, but then they see their smart thermostat says they used it within that same period, we get a couple questions there, but because their usage is so low, we can't detect it, and those do happen. And sometimes when Bidgely can't detect it, it'll put it into an other category, but that other category gets much smaller once we can learn about that home through that home profile. So that's really how we encourage those customers to, let's complete the home profile together and see if we can understand this. But Mary, if there's anything you wanted to add there.
Yeah, I'll add here, which is when you do whole home disaggregation, you don't start with whole home disaggregation. So Bidgely is, over a decade old. We've been doing this for a very, very long time, feels like. You don't start with a level 1 charger, which is a small amplitude charger that can be confused with many different things. You start and you perfect those things that you need, the always on categories, the HVACs, the L2 chargers. And that's what key is. We didn't start with all 12 disaggregation categories. It's you take one and you perfect it. Then you take the next one, you perfect it. And so there's still things that we miss. We can't catch, small like laptops charging and things like that. Maybe in the future, maybe in the next couple of months, but it's an iterative process, of course.
I wrote that down in stone that you're going to figure out laptop charging in the future months.
You can hunt me down.
So, Andrew, question for you coming from the chat. What were the key drivers that Avista used to build the business case for this type of investment with the Bidgely product?
Yeah, great question. And AMI is a significant investment. And we knew that, for us, Washington State, it was really driven by, our commission was super excited about AMI. They wanted us to give these self-serving tools to our customers. So after we deployed our AMI solution, we really needed to find a way to help them, right? You can provide 5-minute interval data, but it doesn't tell a story if we can't determine what the appliance is. If we can't determine what the issue is, those customers are still going to call in with, why is my bill so high? And that driver was, we went out and did an RFP, and it was, how are we going to get the best benefit from our customers through disaggregation? And we knew disaggregation was new. There were a couple players in the game, but Bidgely's background in it and Bidgely's expertise really stood out. And the fact that we already had commission support was great. And that really helped drive the business case for our customers.
All right, so I have one last question. I'm going to ask it to both of you. And it's in the theme of technology is always evolving. This project you guys just discussed was a tech pioneer winning, which by definition, I guess, means that you're at the beginning. So with the evolution of technology, is there anything you can share that you're excited about regarding any updates or things that are close down the line that we're about to see, or any evolutions in the future? So Andrew, I'll start with you. Anything you're excited about as technology is evolving?
Yeah, definitely. We've rolled out our TOU widgets with Bidgely now to help customers. Customers have the ability now today to just go in and see how much money they can save by switching to a TOU rate based on all of their historical information through Bidgely. We are brainstorming on ways to have Bidgely detect high bill or usage alerts if we can get to the point where we're telling a customer, hey, your washing machine is using more than it's used in the past couple months, has that, and then give them direct links to rebates. If it's the refrigerator, right? Think of those smaller appliances where maybe something's wrong. Maybe the compressor on the refrigerator in the garage that's storing the cold drinks, you're not thinking about that, but the compressor's not turning off. Could we notify that customer next day or even same day to where they're not having to wait for that bill to close to see why is my usage so high? And then just collaborating on, rates. Can rates continue to change within the utility space? But that's been a challenge for customers to understand, how much of my rate increase is due to a rate change or is due to my usage. And we've been working with Bidgely to have that actually presentable on their existing widget. So customers can compare those bills and see, oh, I had a $20 increase this year, or this month compared to the same time last month. But the $20, 17 of it was due to usage increase and $3 of it was due to my rate. So through that is what we're really getting excited about, just to give those customers more tools to prevent those calls.
Awesome. Mary, anything you have to add on where you think technology is evolving and you're excited about it?
Yeah, I'll be rapid because I have three. One, electric vehicle fleet detection and optimization. I see, very exciting things there. And on a personal level, I'm just very interested to see what happens there. Two is non-wires, alternative scalability and strategy. So Brenda Hunt in the chat, you asked a great question of what is a key driver for analytics of this case. And there's many different answers to what that could be. But I personally see that the need for scalable and comprehensive non-wires alternatives or flexible demand strategies that exceed kind of the current framework of or kind of limited framework of what assets are considered for these types of non-wires alternative investments. I see it is very exciting, and I'm actually helping to create these strategies for certain utilities, just because we kind of have this unique niche position in the market of having so much insight into the demand or the type of demand that affects different assets in the grid. And the third one is disaggregated load forecasting. So if today Andrew knows where all of the electric vehicles are and he's seen the trends and the growth rates on his specific feeders and he knows which feeders have potential constraints, well, what about under a 25%, EV load growth or increase of electric vehicles? What happens? And where do those electric vehicles show up? So not just load growth in the traditional sense, but knowing where those loads are now and those types of loads. Where do we expect them to be in the future and what impacts will they have to the grid and to those feeders and substations?
Awesome. So it looks like we have gotten through all of our questions. So at this point, I will say a very big thank you to Andrew and Mary for the presentation and going through all those questions. I know we wore you out, but we really appreciate your time and congratulations on the Tech Pioneer Award. Judy, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Kevin. And thank you again so much, Andrew and Mary, to echo what Kevin said. That was really interesting and really well done. We really appreciate it. Congratulations. And of course, Kevin, as always, great job on moderating. Before we close out for the day, let me remind everybody that we appreciate you joining us in the audience and that our load management dialogues, these webinars, are available on webcast. So you'll be able to find this on YouTube in a couple of days, as well as through podcasts. So wherever you get your podcasts from, download your podcast. It's Load Management Dialogues, and you'll be able to find this on that platform. Mentioned YouTube. It's basically youtube.com/@PLMA DR for demand response. And I wanted to also flag, if you are looking for some training, we have 2 fantastic classes coming up in September. The first one is our evolution class, evolution of DR to DER. This is a nice sort of survey class that covers just about everything you want to know at a high level about demand response and distributed energy resources. It is live online. And it will be followed a couple of days later by a deep dive into demand response wholesale markets. Also will be offered live online. If you go to PLMA's calendar at www.peakload.org/calendar, you'll be able to get more information and sign up there. And then the last thing I wanted to flag, which we're really excited about, is we have just announced the agenda and sponsorship opportunities for PLMA's 50th conference, which we'll be holding in November in Brooklyn, New York. Again, if you go to the calendar, you'll be able to get directly to the web pages that talk a little bit about the conference and the agenda items and who will be speaking and all the topics we'll be covering. And of course, this will be a big and fabulous celebration for PLMA after reaching 50 conferences over 25 years. So we hope you'll be able to consider joining us for that. And with that, let me just let you know that you've been listening to a load management dialogue presented by PLMA. To learn about upcoming dialogues and for an archive of past recordings, please visit our website, peakload.org, or your favorite podcast platform. And that concludes this edition. Thank you and have a good rest of your day.